Well, good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to this seminar on keeping engaged with tenants. My name is Jeremy Hewer. I'm one of the policy leads at the Scottish Federation of Housing Associations, and it's my huge pleasure to welcome back tenant participation champion, Paul River, and all-round good egg, Lesley Baird. Lesley's worked for TPAS for some 20 years. And in that time, she's worked with tenant and landlord organisations across Scotland, supporting and building up participation. Now, Scotland's had a long and strong history of participation, and I'm happy to say that TPAS has been instrumental in developing best practice across Scotland in rural, urban, island settings with people of all ages, backgrounds and abilities. Before I pass over to Lesley, just a few housekeeping announcements from me before we get started. You won't have audio enabled, but you can ask a question through the Q&A function on your control panel. We'll be taking questions throughout the presentation, and I'll chip in and ask the questions as we go along. You'll also notice your control panel has a chat function. Use this if you want to share observational thoughts with other attendees, but please don't use this for questions, as they're only going to get lost in the conversation thread. The chat's been working really well in other webinars, so if you can type and listen, I would really encourage you to use it. Well, that's everything from me. You'll be glad to hear. So thank you again for joining us, and I hope you now enjoyed this session. And over to you, Lesley.
Thanks, Jeremy. Hi, everybody. I would say it's lovely to see you, but I can't see anybody. I'm just trying to get my... I'm assuming everybody can see my presentation, and thanks to the SFHA for asking me to come along, and thanks to all of you for attending me in the room. I'm feeling a bit lonely at the minute, so I'm just assuming that there are people actually out there. Just in case you don't know who TPAS Scotland are, and I would be shocked if they couldn't, we work all over Scotland. We have our main base in Glasgow, got an office in Inverness, I've got a worker in Stornoway, one in Stirling, all over the place really. And we're kind of the opinion that there is no one way to do tenant engagement, so we're really happy to support communities all over Scotland. And again, thanks Jeremy for your kind words. I think we're known as the friendly but not cosy face of tenant engagement. We ask the hard questions, and we definitely promote partnership working between tenants and landlords, which doesn't always make for a happy, friendly relationship. We provide a wide range of services, and we had a huge amount of activity planned for this year, as it's our 40th birthday. I haven't actually worked there for 40 years. Sometimes it just feels like it though. And I still think I've got the best job in the world. I get to meet great people, get to travel to great places, and really have a fabulous time. So we asked the question about engagement in Scotland. And I think maybe we asked the question a little bit too early. We had a kind of theory that in week one in lockdown, there was a bit of a panic. Lots of organisations were not used to working digitally, not used to working from home. Lots of organisations said it can't happen, it won't happen. And then it did, it had to happen, there was no choice. In week two, people were just getting to terms with working from home. What does it mean? I don't know if I can do this. I'm kind of missing people. How am I going to cope? By week three, I think people had settled in to working from home and kind of getting used to it. And by week four, it was becoming some kind of normal, that people were beginning to we're supporting each other, we're working with tenants, we're talking to tenants. And now we're at week, I have absolutely no idea what week we're in, and we have a new way of working. And hopefully it'll go back to our normal ways of working quite soon, but I suspect that there will be some changes. So we are keeping in touch with tenants, we're keeping in touch with staff, and we're keeping in touch with organisations. And something tells me maybe we did ask the question a wee bit too early, but we've gathered together all the responses we got from that question and other questions, such as, is anyone doing their tenant satisfaction survey? How are people dealing with scrutiny? And that may already have hit your inboxes today, because certainly that's what we planned. So the first question we asked was, what methods are people using to keep in touch with tenants? And you wouldn't be surprised by some of these responses. People were keeping in touch by phone. I had assumed that a number of people would have said by app, because I know a lot of you out there have an app. And you can ask questions on that app. How are you? Is there anything you want us to talk to you about? Nobody mentioned the app. Lots of people are using Messenger for video calls and instant messages, but then that kind of relies on people having Facebook, and not everyone is that interested in Facebook. There are WhatsApp groups popping up all over the place, and WhatsApp calls a little bit limited to only 5 people. But having been on a number of Zoom calls with friends with up to 15 people, found that a little bit overwhelming, to be honest. Some people are not able to use digital, and there is a limited amount of post going out to people. Zoom is very popular, but if any of you have got any friends who work for local authorities, you will know that Zoom is not allowed in local authorities. Local authorities do not access Zoom. Teams was one which was really useful, but a lot of folk were saying, I can't use Teams. Tenants are saying, I can't use Teams. To join Windows 365, it's £150 for the license, and tenants, certainly most tenants, wouldn't have that. But Teams have now got a free Teams app. I think from what I read, it's only available for a year, but that remains to be seen, and there's no limits on the amount of time you can talk to people. People are using Skype. Lots of local authorities are using WebEx, and I have used Google Hangouts. I wasn't quite so keen on that one, but you know, it's not about me. It's just about the options that are there. People are using text, people are putting out wee videos. Some people said they were using Twitter, but when I asked the question, how many tenants do you think you have that are actually using Twitter? I think there was a kind of raised eyebrow. Well, probably not very many. So we then began to talk with the people that we're in touch with about what are tenants' main priorities during this time. And the responses won't be much of a surprise to you. Our colleagues in TPAS Wales did a survey of tenants, and the main priorities, it chimes with priorities in Scotland, is about people's health. People are frightened of COVID, and about people's mental health. We're living in very strange times. And for tenants who are normally very active, they're out there, it's almost like a full-time job for people. And like the rest of us, they're really struggling with being stuck indoors. This week's Mental Health Week as well, and some pretty good information and advice out there. People are worried about their finances. How am I going to pay my rent? And I have to say that housing associations have rallied to the cause, and there is amazing and very supportive information out there for your tenants. People are worried about food. How can I feed myself and my family if I'm not allowed to go to the supermarket? And we know that things have changed since then as well. And people who have particular illnesses have been very well supported by the food distributors out there. People are worried about the jobs. And I think the majority of people that we've talked to still in a job. 1 or 2 tenant participation officers we know have been furloughed, and some others have been redeployed into doing different things. People are worried about being lonely and being bored. And I think that's where housing has really excelled in keeping in touch with people. Way down the list of priorities is keeping involved with my landlord. And I suppose that shouldn't be a surprise to many of us. But where a lot of tenants, their only family is their tenant participation family, for them it's a bigger blow, and we have to make sure that we continue to keep people engaged, those who want to become engaged. Tenants are getting involved, and a lot of the people that we work with at the minute are already involved in their communities. They're working to improve their communities, not just through housing, but working in food banks and people supporting others who can't help themselves. And tenants have certainly pushed out the boat along with housing organisations and are delivering food. They are supporting their communities and supporting the people round about them. Lots of them who can are keeping very busy and very active. And I know that a number of tenants we work with are knitting the wee hearts to go into hospitals and just doing a variety of different support things that they can, making masks, making scrubs out of curtains. So yeah, a lot of our tenants are involved, but not in the traditional ways that we would expect them to be. There's also a number of people out there who are just saying, will you just leave me alone? I don't want to speak to you. And I know there's lots and lots of welfare calls taking place. Some people, perhaps it was maybe just a little bit early please just leave me alone. It's too early for me. But I think now, after this period of time, people are looking for something to do. They're looking to get back involved again. Some of the fear's been taken away, and people are maybe a bit more, maybe relaxed isn't the right word, but thinking, oh, gee whiz, I am just so bored, I need something else to do. Many active tenants are keen to keep on going, and that's where the challenge has been. How do we do that? How do we keep people involved? As we all know, tenant engagement can be very challenging anyway. It would be wonderful if it was part of people's tenancy agreement that had to be engaged, but that would be completely unrealistic. We all recognise that there are people out there who just want to live their lives, watch Coronation Street, and just want a nice home with great services. And in these days, we have fabulous houses and amazing services, and there's no queue for people to engage. So the messages are still quite difficult. People have a right in Scotland and a very strong voice, and we need to keep banging that drum. And in this particular time, we still need to bang that drum. Are there opportunities that we think we might have missed? The wellbeing calls, can we take them to the next stage? Hello, how are you? Some organisations have asked, would you be willing to contact another person who's on their own and feeling a bit isolated, just for a chat? And I have heard of someone whose mum phoned the wrong number and ended up speaking to another lady who was also isolated and on her own, and they're having weekly calls. So some of it is just about taking it forward. What do you think we're doing very well? We've moved on from the COVID stuff. We've moved on from asking how you're doing. What do you think your landlord does really well now and in the past? What about repairs? So we should begin to asking those kind of questions. What do you think we could do a bit better? If you were the chief executive of your housing association, where would your priorities lie? So could we collect themes? And people are making the wellbeing calls. Could we begin to ask another couple of questions and collect those themes? Would you mind if we called you back about your repairs that you thought were quite good but could be better? Or about the newsletters that you thought you weren't going to read because they weren't for you? Would you mind if we called you back? Could we send you a survey? What about a WhatsApp group? Speaking to other tenants who have got similar views. And it's so important that whatever we do, we don't forget to say thank you to people and feed back to them all the time. I believe there's nothing too small to feed back to people. And I often hear tenants saying, do you know, I spent a wee while on the phone and I spent a wee while taking that survey. I never heard anything. So no matter how small it is, please get in touch with people. Do I have all the answers to engagement anytime or to engagement during this time? Absolutely not. And I've seen the delegates list. There's a lot of fabulous experience in this room. So I haven't got all the answers and I really wish I had. So what's happening? Some of the things that we're thinking about, and this is not unusual in this time and in the back normal time, is we're asking whose agenda is it? We talk to tenants about what we want to talk to them about. Can we maybe talk to tenants about what they want to talk to us about? Because they're not necessarily the same things. So important that we get a mix of both. Landlords are really keen to find out what tenants want. Tenants have another agenda sometimes and really want to talk to landlords about different things. Some of the wellbeing calls are quite heavily scripted with no room for a little bit of wiggle. So maybe we should be wiggling a bit more and asking people, what's important to you? What do you think we should be talking to you about? Not just about things locally, but for all tenants, if something's happening in your community or something's happening with your landlord, we'd really like to talk to you about that and feeding back to people. So the wellbeing calls are a little bit perhaps of a missed opportunity, and now is the time to begin to speak to people about those things. So what kind of things are happening out there? Oopsie daisies. The wellbeing calls are a bit about getting to know people better and finding out some amazing things about people as well, about the things they're interested in. And at the start, it was all about older or vulnerable tenants. Should we be targeting the complainers? Maybe not all of them, but I'm sure there are people out there that we could speak to and say, look, you know, back in the day, you weren't very happy about whatever service we provided for you. Can we talk to you about that? There's another couple of people said the same thing. I wonder if we could get together because we are so keen to make it better for you. Wee bit of time, people have a bit more time now, so maybe this is the time that we should be doing that. Your staff will know a lot of their tenants in their localities really well. So are there any possibles out there? Someone who's maybe asked some questions, somebody who's maybe asked for information. Can we gather these people and begin to talk to these people? And then younger people, I've put there, what is this? I think wherever you go, there's a different definition of younger people. Someone says under 25, some people say under 35, some people say under 60, that would be me. So I think we need to look at what can we do? This is the time, we're always saying that young people want to engage digitally. We now have the opportunity to make that happen. And maybe we need to think about how do we engage with younger people? We've got the digital option now. What questions do we want to ask? What kind of things do we want to do with younger people? I would suspect they don't want to get involved in tenants and residents groups, but do want their views and opinions to be heard. So can we have little surveys, maybe little WhatsApp groups to help people to come together? Newsletters are great, and there are lots of amazing examples of newsletters that are out there just now. People are keeping their tenants up to date with the kind of things that are going on. Can we get some good news stories in there? Because a lot of them are very factual, people need facts, but it would be so nice to see some wee chitter-chatter stuff in there about Mrs. Smith has gone out with the food bank, Mrs. Brown and Mrs. Smith met by accident on the phone and now they're communicating with each other. Oh, and by the way, they think the service could do a bit better in whatever. I know that it's a housing organisation who have a tenant scrutiny group, and they're keeping in touch by having a quiz. It's a bit of fun, it keeps people in touch, but it's also very informative. So the questions are not just yes and no questions. The questions are yes, but, and it's a description of the housing service. So if someone said how many indicators are there or how many standards are on the charter, there are 16 standards. Does anyone know what the ones are for tenant engagement, tenant participation? And there's a wee bit more of a description. What's the role of the Scottish Housing Regulator, and a bit of a description. So it's kind of training by the back door, giving people information on a lot of stuff to do with housing that maybe we haven't done particularly well before. So it's not just yes or no, the answer is, and a bit of a description. There are still some scrutiny groups meeting, but it is again relying on people who have access to video and access to digital. Some of them have limited membership, but one organisation is at the minute working with the scrutiny group, looking and digesting, and I have to say worrying a little bit about the recent tenant satisfaction figure surveys. What's not so good? Why have some of those figures gone round, and trying to work through that with scenarios, questions, interviewing staff. So it's kind of like a scrutiny process that would happen just now, preparing the questions, getting the background work done, and being consistent in their approach on how to tackle some of these particular areas. So there's all that kind of stuff going on just now as well. There's one organisation or one lady who talks about keeping a wish box. And it's a little note she does with her tenants. What do I want for me when COVID is over, when life comes back to lockdown is unlocked? What do I wish for my landlords, and what do I wish for my community? And then we all keep in touch about how we've done with that. How has our wishes changed? Have any of our wishes come true? Tenants groups are meeting. Smaller groups are meeting through WhatsApp groups. And some are meeting through Facebook Messenger videos, having a routine agenda. Still a bit of training going on there, trying to encourage people, and using platforms like video. Facebook means that you're relying on people being on Facebook, and some people really just do not want to be on Facebook. So we need to look beyond the kind of Facebook, but if it works for you, go for it. For general tenants, we work quite closely with our colleagues in England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and there was a Facebook Live question and answer with the Chief Executive of a housing association, and I think they got about 180 tenants going along to that, just answering questions. I think that's something that's very brave, but has to be applauded as well. And well managed, because we don't want to see, I'm not going back there because there was too many shouty people at the Q&A. So well managed, and I think it's a very open and honest organisation that can do that. Short videos, people will watch very short videos, and which is great, but sometimes it's plucking up the courage to actually be able to do that, and having the space in a room to be able to do it as well. We talked about within our team about matchmaking. Where interested and tenants who've been involved for a long time are match made. No, it doesn't have to go beyond speaking to each other. There's no requirement to have a date or anything. But people matchmaking with people who are potentially newbies, the people that we're saying, ask the question. So I'm quite interested in that, or I'd like to find out a bit more information about that. So it's a very informal, almost like the SFHA buddy system, speaking to people. So there's calls. Some organisations are keeping in touch with their tenants because they have a register of interest, and they're keeping up with their tenants by phoning once a week and phoning all tenant reps once a week. And they have chats and catch-ups digitally just to say hello. Sometimes there's a bit of work goes on in there as well. How much can you do without being face-to-face to people? And I think we're finding that out just now. I have the luxury of having a printer sat next to my wee home office, and if I want to read something, sometimes I find it easier to print it off. We have to be aware that a lot of the people we're working with do not have that luxury, so sending a 45-page document is probably not a good idea. So sending small snippets of information in small chunks that are easily digestible is certainly a really good way to engage with people. And remote discussion groups. I know that the one organisation is reviewing its TP strategy remotely, and that's probably something that some of us might get round to. So there's conference calls with the normal agenda, and conference calls where they're inviting other staff and other tenants to come in, to invite them to talk about something they've said they've expressed an interest in. So a tenant scrutiny group might be looking at the repair service. Let's invite some tenants in who've said something positive or negative about the repairs, and speak to some repair staff and talk them through it. So important that we keep things simmering. We need to keep in touch with people regularly, not just once every 6 weeks. We're launching Facebook chat, and that's coming quite soon for tenant participation staff to share their experiences, the things that have worked, the things that haven't worked so well. And we're also launching quite soon a national survey for tenants and residents, so that tenants have a loud voice as well, and we'll be feeding back and everything. I feel very honoured to work for Tenant Participation Advisory Service, and I feel very honoured that so many tenants give so much of their time and their energy and their knowledge and their skills for nothing. And I think we still have to remember to say thank you to people. How good is it when someone says thank you to you for doing a really good job? And I think that tenants are doing a job for us, and we have to remember to say thank you. I know as an organisation who have said that they have a small budget to recognise where tenants might be feeling a bit low or a bit vulnerable, have gone that extra mile, and that budget is to cover maybe a box of chocolates or a bunch of flowers for somebody, just to say thank you. And a little gesture like that just is so amazing and goes such a long, long way. It's added value to that thank you that we keep saying to people, that we need to keep the kettle simmering and making sure that people can stay engaged with us. Almost finally, you'll be glad to hear, people are getting on to the stuff now that they've been meaning to get round to for quite a while. I'm sure all of us are working really hard, but you're just finding I don't have the travel time that I used to have. I'm not sitting in airports endlessly, waiting for flights, inevitably Loganair, no offence Loganair, that have been delayed. So is this a time that we might want to look at mystery shopping? We could do some short training with tenants. I'd get them to look at how organisations communicate. How do you get your information? How do we feedback? Or in these tense times, is that maybe just a step too far for people? Some of you might quite like that idea. If you're quite a small organisation, you might want to team up with another tenant organisation or tenants with their support workers to share ideas and to share mystery shoppers, so that it's the mystery shopper remains a mystery, and it's not, was that you on the phone, Lesley? So maybe it is a step too far for some. It might be time to review your TP strategy, to do the desktop stuff. The Scottish Government produced its document last year, a guide to good tenant engagement. They didn't reproduce the does your strategy measure up, but the core elements they would like in their strategy are in that document. It does mean, though, that a strategy is a bit on the long side. So we would always recommend that you review your strategy that ticks all the boxes, but you have something there. I do not want to get to page 40 of a document before I find out how I can actually get engaged with my landlord. I'm sorry, I just wouldn't read anymore. I don't want to get to the index at the back to find out how I can engage, how I can, who is it I contact? Page 45, no. We need to bring it to the front, make it enticing, make it a fun looking document, make it something you would actually want to pick up, not a dull and quite corporate document. And that's an issue. Corporate identity can be a real pain when it comes to making something that's incredibly tenant friendly. So now's the time to smash the corporate figure and put something that's quite interesting up there. Reviewing your newsletters and your communications. Some newsletters are absolutely brilliant. Do we need to go a bit more local? If you lived in Glasgow and your landlord also had properties in Inverness, and you kept seeing pictures of Glasgow in the front of your newsletter, that doesn't impact on me, nothing to do with me. So I'm trying to make things a bit more local. You could have an editorial group or a reading group of tenants from across all your services that would help with that. And it doesn't involve very much other than inviting people to contribute. What do you think? Have we got it right? You need to give people a little bit of skill to help them do that. Otherwise, we need to value people's time and give them an idea of what we're looking for. So who's going to do all this kind of stuff, or who's working just now? Lots of the traditional tenant participation people that we would speak to have been redeployed. Lots of them are giving out PPE, or food parcels, or working in bin lorries. So we need to make sure that we are getting to the people, because we can't let engagement fall in this time. As I said, engagement is hard enough, and we need to keep the pot simmering away. We need to use other staff skills. Housing is good at talking to people. It's good at caring for people. It's good at understanding people. So we need to use and value those skills from the rest of our teams. Will this change housing forever? I've had a number of conversations with people who have said housing will never be the same again. And it's a good thing, because do you know what? We are very, very good at what we do. I speak to my colleagues in England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and I think they're desperately jealous of the stuff that we have in Scotland, and how strongly housing is valued in Scotland at the highest levels. Is it going to change? And we've talked long and hard about the digital offer for tenants, but lots and lots of people that I work with, TP is their life, it's their family, and they want to meet with people face to face. So important that we allow that to happen, but we also look for other offers and support people with those other offers. And I know a housing association who have given tenants tablets. We're doing the same with a couple of our tenant board members. They're getting a tablet because they cannot engage. But it's not just about the tablet. We're also getting their Wi-Fi added onto our own company Wi-Fi. So we are supporting people to enable them to engage with us digitally. So for some people, we have to give them that extra a bit of help. I think it will add to the menu of involvement that we've currently got, and it won't end the face-to-face. For some, as I say, it is a family and friend for people. So finally, you'll be glad to hear, if anyone wants to join the TP chats, we do have a number of TP chat groups, tenant participation officers, or people who have TP as a part of their group, and we just share information and share what's happening or what's not happening, and that's been really useful for us. If anyone wants a general chat, please just get in touch, or want some support or an independent review of their strategy. And thank you so much for listening, and I hope some people have got some questions for me.
Thanks so much, Lesley. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
We have, first of all, one question that's come up. You said that health was a key tenant concern. Is there a feel for the amount and type of support around health and mental health that tenants would like from their housing association? Have you got a sense of that?
I mean, I think the general contact, Jeremy, is helping people immensely. And people are delighted to have that contact. They know that someone from their organisation is going to phone them once a week or twice a week. And I think that people welcome that. And I know that a number of organisations have also identified people who would be willing to contact other people and it's tenants talking to tenants as well, staff talking to tenants. So yeah, I think it's gone down really well. In terms of I've just lost the question completely. Sorry, you need to remind me.
Right, it was the question about what do you think tenants would actually want from their housing association in terms of support around mental
Right, okay,
mental
yeah,
health?
it's just the contact, Jeremy. Just the contact is brilliant. Yeah, so yeah, I would just keep the contact, keep the chat, keep speaking to people. Have you gone, Jeremy? Have I gone? Have I done something daft? Hello? Hello? Oh,
Hi, Lesley. I think Jeremy's froze. So you're
Has he?
still on, but I think Jeremy has frozen.
okay. Sorry, Jeremy. I think Jeremy's disappeared. No, he's still there. I can see some chats there.
So Lesley as well, somebody's asking, has there been any feedback in terms of whether the contact is more meaningful when it's face-to-face or video calling? So, or sorry, when it's face-to-face, e.g. in a video call, or when it's by a telephone call? So has there been any, as opposed to by phone? Thank you for.
No, I think because when I said at the start, sort of the health warning, that we might have asked the question too early, and we're now going to begin to ask the question again. From what I understand, the majority of calls that were done only by phone. Since we've done our survey, I think that might have changed. But again, it's getting back to how many people have actually got the capacity for video calls. I suppose more, if we had a room of tenants and said, put your hand up if you've got a smartphone, I think a lot of people do, but certainly I know that a lot of people that I've done work with in the past refuse to use anything, do not contact me digitally, I'm just not up for it. So maybe we have a bit of work to do around about the refuseniks, but in terms of the quality of either video or phone, I'm sorry, I have no idea, but it's certainly helping us if we ask that question the next time when we're speaking to people.
We've had something in the chat as well, Lesley, from Heather Jeffries, and Heather saying
hi, Heather.
They're finding a lack of internet access and tenantability a problem.
Yeah. I think, particularly in somewhere like Viewpoint, where Heather works from, and one of the housing associations we worked with, we know that the tenant participation officer actually delivered tablets to people's home and stood outside the house, well, not shouting at them, but guiding them on how to use them. With an organisation like Viewpoint, you have an issue with that because you're much wider spread. So I think that using the phone to gather people together, it is a bit frustrating for us. We like groups, we like people in groups, but maybe even linking people. Thank you for the call. Can you phone Mrs. Smith? Because she said that she was interested in that as well. And I'll phone you back and see how you get on. So when I talked about matchmaking, it's the kind of matchmaking with people so that they can communicate with each other. And absolutely, there is an issue about. Actually, to be honest, I think a lot more people have access to video and digital than actually use it.
Yes, well, I would agree with that, Lesley. Yeah,
I think there is a granny pad, which is an iPad which is simpler, but is incredibly expensive. So I think we just have to try and support the people by talking to them about, press that button, now the next button. Yes, I can see you, hello. Yeah. So it's very, very time consuming though.
Lovely. So I think, just checking if there's anything else at the moment. I think that's it. So if there was kind of one thing that you think that people should be thinking about at the moment, Lesley, what for you is the most fundamental thing?
Keeping in touch, using whatever means you can. There's some really good examples of stuff that's happening out there, but I think the important thing is to keep in touch. Rather than coming back 8 weeks later and picking up where we left off, we need to keep the pot simmering and keep people engaged. But I said other people have got other things going on in their lives. Yeah, I would love them to think that engagement was part of that, and for some of them it absolutely is. For the majority of them it's absolutely not, and we have to respect that and give people their space. But yeah, smaller is beautiful now. Smaller groups, smaller one-to-ones. Definitely that would be my kind of message.
Lovely. That's super. Lesley, it's so lovely to see you.
Thank you, Angie.
Thank you so much for taking the time to lead the webinar today. If anyone's got any questions, we'll have Lesley's contact details on the event page. We'll also be, are you quite happy for us to share your slides, Lesley?
Yep, no problem.
Great. We'll be sharing the slides, and we'll also have a copy of the recording on the website, and we'll send the details out. If there's anything else that any of us can do, then please just give us either get in touch via the website, or get in touch with the corporate services team. Molly and I are here, so if there's anything at all we can do to help, get in touch. And Lesley, hopefully we'll see you soon.
Yeah, hope so. Thank you
very much indeed.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye. Thanks.